Profile share via email report story. As the second day of staying at the Ichiba Island came into light, Nami shined just as bright while she greeted her fellow crewmates. Behind the joyous navigator was the biggest star in the world shining its morning light. Ohayu, Minna. While it was only 9:23 a.m., she had so much energy within her, she couldn't help but use it. Nami walked over to the reindeer to grab his body and throw him up in the air with a giddy grin. She even gave him a tight hug and the crew watched the scene with confusion. Chopper didn't understand her morning attitude, but he wasn't going to complain at her sweet gestures. He only laughed away with her and greeted back, Ohayu, Nami. Due to a long night of storytelling from the archaeologist, Brooke still wasn't entirely awake. Like the rest of the crew, he also found Nami's morning attitude strange. While Luffy-san must have given her the bracelet last night, maybe that's why she's so happy, Brooke blurted to himself. The rest of the Straw Hat pirates except for Nami, Luffy, and Chopper heard and spun their heads to the skeleton's direction and gaped. Usopp rushed to the musician's side and pulled his collar back and forth, shaking him. Oh come on Brooke, you couldn't have said that in your head. Brooke grew dizzy and only mustered a "Gomenasai." Robin snickered at her crew member's behavior as she glanced over at the cat burglar. She recalled assisting in leading Nami's attention to the note underneath her plate so Luffy may talk to her. However, that was a strange way of the captain asking for a conversation. Normally, he would have yelled out her name and asked her to step outside. Instead he went through the trouble of writing a note to tell her. It was particularly weird. She's sure Brooke's words held truth in it. Another snicker escaped her lips. Assuming Brooke and Usopp knew beforehand he would give the bracelet to Nami, Luffy's usual action would be embarrassing since those two already know what will be talked about. Maybe that was the reason behind it. Striding Robin's way was Nami carrying Chopper with one hand and the other waving to her. Robin gave her a smile. Good morning, Navigator-san. What has you in such a good mood? Nami smiled back while handing the reindeer to the archaeologist. Oh, nothing special. Just thought I'd start the day with a positive attitude. She shifted her stance to stare at Zoro, who stared back with wide eyes. She tsked. You're awake already. HMPH, I was hoping I'd kick the sleep out of you. The swordsman couldn't help but feel appalled to see Nami so happy at a bracelet not even made of diamonds. He assumed the bracelet Luffy got for her was cheap since he had no way of affording such an expensive gem. Her good morning freaked him out and he thought she'd also direct that merry grin onto him. Thanked Cammy he was being treated the same. Shut up, witch, your greeting was just loud as hell. The tangerine lover rolled her eyes. Funny how that woke you up but not the times when I'm yelling right to your face. Her attention was then directed to Sanji's figure crying on the floor at the news he heard from Brooke. Though, she had no idea about that. Ah, Sanji-kun, no need to make breakfast for me. I'm going to eat on the island for today. Gomen. With that said, she waved bye to the older woman before heading towards her grove. Usopp had already let go of Brook, and when Robin decided to join them he whispered, "I wonder what she was doing yesterday." Robin chuckled lightly. "I believe she spent her day with a man. He was weird, I have to admit." Usopp's cheeks exploded. "WWWWW what? Promoted stories. You'll also like 3D2YA One Piece fanfic. 372K 6.2K. Luffy stumbles upon Nami by chance on a small island after the crew was separated at Sabayati Archipelago. The two decide to train together, but then comes the warm, weird. My One Piece Book 1 11.7K 278. Monkey D. Luffy, a cheerful, carefree young man from East Blue wearing a straw hat, set sail on a small boat carrying the biggest dream of finding the One Piece. He's our One Piece. Grand endeavors. 1.6K 316. Emotions are dangerous. Traveling the sea is dangerous. Being a pirate is dangerous. What could go wrong combining the three? The Straw Hat Pirates continue along the Ultimate Devil Fruit One Piece fanfic. 197K 6.1K. Clarity lived a fairly normal life, at least she did, until she was thrown into the world of devil fruits and pirates. Stuck in the grasps of her own hell for over 10 years. Mistake. 5.8K 334. All the relations are tied with a very weak string. Sanji, cook of the Straw Hats, no one knows about his family, his past, no one cared about it as they continued to th. Dream OpX Reader. 52.8K 2.6K. When one looks back to their childhood, one remembers the vivid springs of laughter, climbing trees and reaching out for the stars, and making flower crowns in fields of Water Pillar, One Piece X Reader. 4.1K 143. As the Strafuts sail across the sea in hopes of reaching Alabasta to stop a civil war, they come across an island. An island not found in any maps. In this island stand. Brook, too, had the same reaction. Poor Luffy-kun. Gave her a bracelet only to not know she has met a man and is no longer interested in our captain. Oh please, why do men immediately think to something romantic? They're just acquaintances, nothing more. Robin replied. Nami carried a small basket with several tangerines and made her way towards the board that led down to the island's sand. Robin-san, I'm leaving early. I leave the rest to you. After seeing Robin's nod, she didn't even use the board to get down, she jumped instead. As soon as her feet met the sand, she sped to the distant booths and celebration happening in the middle of the island. It left Robin, Chopper, Usopp, and Brook confused on why she ran so fast. But something else confused them more. In the men's quarters direction was the loud slam of its door opening following incoherent shouting. All men were on deck except for one, their very own captain. Running to the ship's deck was Luffy with a worried expression. He crashed into Usopp and grabbed his shoulder and shook him for an answer. Where's Nami? The sharpshooter pushed him off before replying. You just missed her, she already left. That seemed to calm Luffy down as he let out a sigh of relief and laid himself down the deck's grass. Brook asked why he looked so troubled and responded, I had a dream Nami disappeared. The skeleton asked if the location was at Ichiba Island and the Straw Hat nodded. Brook laughed. No worries, Luffy-kun. Nami has company today. Luffy slowly got up from his position and tilted his head slightly. Sanji, the musician, shook his head. No, Robin informed as she met a man yesterday. I'm sure Nami will be in safe hands. So no need to worry. Luffy still didn't understand. Who? Robin cut in for the skeleton. Last night, Nami arrived to the ship with a man who gifted us with delicious fruits. I'm guessing he's now a friend of Nami's and she might be spending her day again with him. No. Robin became perplexed at the semi-harsh tone. Pardon. Luffy pouted. Captain's order. She has to spend the day with us. Chopper joined in the conversation. But we shouldn't force Nami to hang out with us. Luffy mentally frowned at Chopper's response, wishing he took his side. Oh come on. His attention went to Robin and Usopp. What do you guys think? Usopp stayed silent, slightly fearing that his say would irritate his captain. Thankfully, Robin and him shared the same opinion on the matter. He watched the archaeologist's mouth form into a grin. We also agree with Chopper, Captain San. Straw Hat had to visibly frown at 3 of his members being against him. His body spun a 180 to face Brook several feet away. Brook already had a response similar to Chopper's in which made Luffy's brows furrow. His eyes scanned the Thousand Sunny to try and spot a tall, large cyborg. But when seeing the shipwright converse with Zoro while Sanji was down on the floor lying on a puddle of tears, he realized all 3 men would just give the same response like Chopper's. Sanji would give an opposite response, of course. Truthfully speaking, Luffy didn't really want to look for Nami with Sanji constantly praising or complimenting her body every minute. So he let out a big sigh and positioned his straw hat better on top of his head and decided to find her himself. A palm tree caught his eye and before he knew it, his arms were already stretched out a long distance behind him. He let his arms then tug forward to fly to the direction of the tree with the most coconuts. Before flying, he could hear Usopp yell, "Luffy, you're going to miss the announcements." When hugging the base of the tree, reaching to pick 3 coconuts, he couldn't help but laugh. Such useless words Usopp spoke, as if instructions will hold him back from finding his navigator. As he cracked open one of the coconuts and sipped its water, his mind was filled with the idea of pulling Nami away from whatever stranger caught her attention yesterday. Blank, underscore, blank. No way, Ohayu, Nami. Upon her arrival to Kyoshi's front porch, she was met with the door opening slightly to see the peeking eyes of his nephew, Mako. Yesterday's afternoon, which was spent tasting bread and watching a 5-year-old dance, she was able to learn the name of the man with such weird fashion. Plus, she got a whole summary of his life till now. Sato Kiyoshi, a 27-year-old, with no wife or past lover. Just a man with no interest in loving a woman. Loving his nephew and taking care of him after his mother and father's accident at sea is enough for him. His interests vary in baking, gardening, reading, and horribly designed shirts and jeans. Nami thought he was like an old lady and didn't hesitate to say it out loud. He only gave her a stank eye in response. The navigator really didn't like kids. They were annoying brats who were always filled with energy and only stopped when tired. Cammy knows when they're tired. It could be from 7 p.m. or worse 3 a.m. This little boy in front of her was no exception. The moment she stepped into the house yesterday, he bombarded her with endless questions about adventures on sea and what the Straw Hat Pirates are like when not fighting. He even begged her to invite him on board, which reached the peak of Nami's annoyance, and with the same loud tone she used on her crew, she used it on the little boy. Of course he cried and his uncle tried comforting him. The little devil even gave her a scowl and said she owed him tangerines. Kiyoshi knew how precious tangerines were to the cat burglar, so he worriedly tried to shut up his nephew. But she ended up making a deal with the brat, saying she'll give him tangerines if he stopped bothering her. And so here she was, displaying the fakest of smiles to Mako while showing him the basket. He eagerly took it from her grasp and dashed into the house. She caught the sight of Kiyoshi just coming down the stairs. Mako, don't open the door so easily, he scolded. Although it was faint, she swore she heard the brat say, "It's okay, uncle. I heard her heels from a mile away. I just knew it was her." Kiyoshi snickered while seeing the navigator roll her eyes and plop herself on his couch. Mako isn't wrong though. He took note of her soft expression that differed greatly to her face from yesterday. Whenever Mako was outside playing with friends and Kiyoshi was cleaning the kitchen, he couldn't help but glance at the girl's direction and watch the way she held a displeased and pained look. Now, she was smiling to herself. He sat on the couch across from hers and stared at her, holding his grin. You, smiling. That's weird. He expected her to stare blankly at him, but she just smiled more. That gave him a clear hint on what caused her giddiness. I see. Did you patch things up with your captain? When ranting about issues, that was only ever directed towards Robin. She'd never spill her business to a complete stranger. But Kiyoshi's carefree attitude settled her and she felt like he was an old friend from years and years ago. Though she was planning on letting Robin know when she went back on ship yesterday why she was so uptight, she couldn't wait any longer and decided to say it all to this weird man. In other words, he knew what was going on in her head. Nami tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Maybe, PFF'd, I don't know. That followed with small bursts of chuckles. Well, I mean, she lifted her arm to reveal the shiny bracelet with charms that truly expressed her. If this indicates anything, I'm pretty sure we did. Kiyoshi laughed. A bracelet? Straw had Luffy picked that out. Surprisingly, yes. Her fingers played with it as she talked to the older man. Last night, he told me he just couldn't figure out what got me so upset. He explained how he wanted to fix things right away. To make up for his lack of knowledge of my anger, he gave me a box and told me goodnight. She let out a happy sigh. He's so simple, I expected it to be discounts of meals from different restaurants. Instead, it was that beautiful bracelet. Kiyoshi added, but it's not made of any expensive gems, so why are you so happy? Nami threw her head back to rest it on one of the couch's pillows and kept smiling. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Ah, Kiyoshi quickly got up on his feet. Mako. Oh Kami, that's Mako. Didn't that scream come from the front? Nami, too, was on her feet, heading her way towards the door. The baker followed her lead. That little guy sneaked out front through the side of the house again. Seriously. His hand reached for the doorknob and turned it before pulling. If that boy wants to hang with his friends, all he has to do is ask. No, leave me alone. These are my tangerines. Mako held the basket behind his small body, ensuring he wouldn't let this red vest wearing teen get to them. Yours. Those are Nami's. I know that because she's my navigator. Baka, she's part of the Straw Hat Pirates. You're acting as if you're the captain or something. I am the captain. Yaha. At the scene in front of her, her left hand placed itself onto her waist while her right massaged the bridge of her nose. For goodness sake, how in the hell did her captain catch up to the middle of the island so quickly? She only arrived 5 minutes ago, so his early arrival must have been from ditching announcements. Her eyes moved to watch Kiyoshi's figure dash to Mako's side and pick his niece up. Mako. What did I tell you about going outside by yourself? Because of that, you don't deserve these Mikens anymore. After placing his niece onto his shoulders, he quickly took the basket from the child's grasp. Mako attempted in grabbing it back but stumbled when almost falling. Not fair, Oji-san. The 6-year-old realized that if his hands were busy trying to grab something, he wouldn't be able to hold on to his uncle. He'll end up falling in the end. The baker held onto his niece as he bowed slightly to apologize to the man that Mako was so rude to. Gomenasai, sir. I should have had a better eye on this boy. He then noticed the sandals the man wore, which wasn't local to the island's fashion. I apologize, this must be your first visit here. I assure you, nothing like this will ever happen again. After his eyes went from his sandals, red vest, scar under his eye, to a straw hat resting upon his head, Kiyoshi couldn't have felt more stupider. His head turned to his left to spot the navigator who wasn't there. His attention went back to the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates, and the baker's hands felt sweaty from his glare. But after a few seconds, that glare turned into a jolly smile. Luffy's left hand scratched the back of his neck. It's okay, it was kinda my fault. He murmured that last sentence to himself. Oh, I'm Luffy, by the way. He tried to ignore the glare from the kid on his shoulders. Where'd you get those mycons? That was the question Kiyoshi was afraid of. Should he lie and say they're from a special part of the island? But what if he wants to see where the fruit's from, what then? And if he was honest, what if the captain thought he kidnapped her for the tangerines? A variety of answers swarmed his head, and Mako poked his cheek to see what was wrong. Thankfully, Nami appeared. The cat burglar stretched her captain's right cheek, and when feeling that action, Luffy knew who it was. Nami, there you are. I was looking for you. He pointed at the basket the baker was holding. I thought those were your tangerines for a moment. Doesn't it look like yours? Nami shook her head. Baka, that's 'cause those are my mycons. Luffy frowned. You never give away your mycons though. He glanced at the brown-haired man in the basket for a moment. Well, whatever. Chopper wanted to spend the day with you, so I came to find you. He lied. Her eyebrow rose. Before leaving in the morning, Chopper wasn't really trying to stop her. So it was rather strange for her to hear that. Her captain grabbed her arm and pulled her slightly. Come on, if we head back to the ship now, we'll bump into them on the way. Nami had no problem with that. Besides, she missed hanging out with the reindeer, and yesterday, she missed the opportunity to bond with some of her crewmates. Today would be a great time to make up for that. Just as she was about to wave byes to her two acquaintances, Kiyoshi's invitation startled her. Oh, but surely you wouldn't want to miss out on the heavy breakfast I made. Wouldn't want it to go to waste. Right, Luffy-kun? Kiyoshi asked with a sinister grin. Luffy only stared back blankly. However, the baker caught the annoyance within that emotionless expression. Nami understood what this older man was doing. Seeing how nervous he was when asked a question from her captain, she didn't see it coming he'd invite the future king of the pirates. But she should have known Kiyoshi would be nosy and want to know the pirate better. Plus, she's sure he'd indirectly tease her when conversing with Luffy, which she wasn't looking forward to. She hoped Luffy would reject the offer, but with food mentioned, that was impossible. Breakfast? How do you know I haven't ate yet? Arigato. As soon as Kiyoshi opened the door, Luffy dashed inside, and Nami angrily told him off about how disrespectful that was. But the baker didn't mind. Although the cat burglar already came inside, she hadn't took note of the delicious smell of bread coming from the kitchen. Plates upon plates of French toast and strawberry danishes laid on the table next to jars of strawberry or grape jam and butter. A loaf of shoku pan, white bread covered in thin plastic, also sat with the pastries. Kiyoshi offered the pirates a glass plate plus a butter knife if they wanted to spread jam on slices of white bread. Mako looked amazed at the amount of pastries his uncle baked. He was beside Nami and he tugged her leg to whisper, "Oji-san has never made this much bread just for breakfast before." Nami grinned at that and wondered why as well. Kiyoshi read her mind though when she and Mako approached the strawberry danishes the baker stood in front of. His hand rested on his nephew's head to mess his hair. "You're right, Mako. Today they were supposed to be tested by the little kids but I decided to change up their menu." "To what?" Mako asked. "Animal bread." Mako's eyes lit up. "Can I choose the animal? Please." Nami laughed along with Kiyoshi at the little boy's excitement before grabbing 2 slices of bread, jam, and a strawberry danish to then join Luffy who practically ate almost half of the French toast. Kiyoshi expected that so he wasn't too surprised. "Of course, Mako. Let me guess, a turtle." Mako giggled. With a couple of glass cups placed on the table, Nami grabbed 2 of them. She led her way to the fridge and grabbed the milk carton before shutting its door. She was aware where it was since yesterday. Kiyoshi told her to help herself to milk while taste testing his bread. She poured milk more than halfway for both her and Luffy. After sliding the glass to his plate, he nodded happily at her and chugged the drink. Before slamming the cup, Nami grabbed the bottom of it with her palm and poured more milk for her captain. They never drank milk regularly but it did make a good combination especially with bread. After a good 10 minutes of stuffing himself with breakfast, Luffy patted his stomach and flashed a grateful smile towards the man sitting across from him. "That was amazing. You make great bread." The 6-year-old smiled proudly for his uncle. "Of course he does. He's the best baker in town, after all." Suddenly, a thought hit him. This guy next to Nami did yell at him outside and he was still upset with him for trying to take away his basket. But the Mako didn't understand what gave the right for this scar-eyed stranger to tell Nami what to do and be let inside via invitation from his uncle. It didn't make sense at all. "Hey, wait a minute, who are you?" Luffy tilted his head, confused. "I said my name already though. I'm Luffy." Mako squinted his eyes, still not understanding the significance of his name. It answered no questions. Or did it? "Hold on, Luffy." Mako, too, tilted his head. "Luffy, Luffy." He thought that by repeating the name, something would click in his head and something did. Mako jumped out of his seat and pointed an accusing finger at the man, Monkey D. Luffy, the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates. He was taken back but was happy his name was recognized by even children. "Yup, that's me." Kiyoshi carefully pushed his nephew back into his seat. "The Straw Hat was very obvious, Mako. How do you not recognize him?" "I don't know. I was too busy thinking he was a weirdo for asking me so many questions about Nami's Mycons." He looked up at both the captain and navigator. "But it makes sense now. Ever since he bumped into Nami because of a little boy who carried familiar-looking Mycons, he wondered what their relationship was with Nami. He was sure the man Robin was talking about was this guy. He also wondered how they met but he felt too awkward to ask it after Mako's discovery. The kitchen fell quiet and Nami broke it by scooting her seat back to stand up. "Thank you for the meal, Kiyoshi. We really appreciate it but I originally planned to look around the rest of the island today or be with the crew." Nami flashed a smile to Luffy. "So we'll be on our way." Although the captain originally wanted to leave, he didn't really mind staying for a few more hours. He wouldn't admit that, of course. Now hold on. The older brunette stopped the two pirates from exiting out. A ding was heard from the massive oven he owned. As he put on a pair of light gray oven mitts, he took out 4 pans of turtle animal bread, 8 in each pan. Mako stared at the small pastries with wonder. Do you mind helping me bring these over to the market? Nami hesitated to answer as she glanced at her captain's stoic stare. Her mouth remained closed, deciding to let Luffy answer for her. Surprisingly, he had the opposite response she expected. Sure, he walked towards Kyoshi and assisted him in putting the bread in clear, small bags. Nami stared at the two from behind in astonishment, wondering where his eagerness of seeing the crew went. Luffy spun his head and gave her a grin. Yesterday I was playing with these kids and they used my arms as a jump rope. I wonder if you're giving this to them. As Straw Hat finished the packaging, Kyoshi placed the bread into 4 boxes. He handed the other 2 to the Straw Hats. Mako, get my keys and lock the door, will you? Mako gave him a salute and did as he was told as the 4 of them made their way outside, listening to the loud music being played during the festivities happening in the center of the island. As they walked together alongside tourists and locals who were looking forward to the food and items being sold, Mako spotted his playmates at the fruits booth and grew excited at the thought of showing off the Straw Hat Pirates visiting their home. Uncle, Chio, Kenji, and Akira are just over there. Come on, let's walk faster. You guys are so slow. Mako, please, don't be so rude, Kiyoshi scolded. Before he could refrain his nephew from running off, Luffy carried the child and placed him on his shoulders. The little one held the box of bread for him.
What are you doing, fat boy?
You better hold on tight, Luffy told, chuckling to himself as he stretched his arm. We'll be there in a few seconds. Nami's face paled, knowing fully what was about to go down. Luffy, Chato Mat, what if he gets hurt? But it was much too late to give him a warning because his arm stretched to the tree next to the fruits booth. He then jumped off the ground to let himself fly to Mako's destination. Woohoo! Mako's excitement was heard as the two zoomed in the distance. Although Kyoshi was worried of the outcome when they landed, he knew he could trust Luffy. Unfortunately for Nami and him, they had to keep walking. As the tangerine lover walked beside the baker, she asked, these boxes are very light and I'm sure a guy like yourself can handle carrying 4. So what are you up to? He only responded with a smirk. You better not ask Luffy anything strange, okay? He shrugged his shoulders. Maybe I won't. He glanced at her bracelet before she could catch his stare. Maybe I will. Blank, underscore, blank. In one of the empty booths, Kiyoshi placed all 3 boxes on a table, opened it up, and let its aroma do the talking. At the familiar smell, children swarmed to the booth, praising Kiyoshi's baking skills and appreciating the delicious taste. Not even 10 minutes passed by and the boxes were empty except for one pastry left behind. Luffy's mouth watered at it and when allowed to take it, he devoured it quickly. How come you didn't bake more stuff and bring it here to sell? You'll make plenty of money that way. Nami commented. Yeah, plus you just let them snatch it without paying. Luffy added. Kiyoshi warmly smiled at their concern. Don't worry, I'm financially stable and it's a tradition I've been doing since Mako was born. His index finger pointed at a packed booth to their right, 3 booths across from theirs. Luffy-san, you see that place? That's Panda's Bakery. It's famous around these parts of the ocean. That's why there's so many tourists. Not only for a peek at the festivities and market but for their pastries. That place practically birthed Ichiba Island's fame. He took a moment to stare at the many customers the bakery took in. In the beginning, it was only us, locals, who were able to appreciate our island's talented bakers' creations. Of course, their talent was reached across the globe eventually. Our island's chief D him on his shoulders. The little one held the box of bread for him. You better hold on tight, Luffy told, chuckling to himself as he stretched his arm. We'll be there in a few seconds. Nami's face paled, knowing fully what was about to go down. Luffy, Chato Mat, what if he gets hurt? But it was much too late to give him a warning because his arm stretched to the tree next to the fruits booth. He then jumped off the ground to let himself fly to Mako's destination. Woohoo! Mako's excitement was heard as the two zoomed in the distance. Although Kyoshi was worried of the outcome when they landed, he knew he could trust Luffy. Unfortunately for Nami and him, they had to keep walking. As the tangerine lover walked beside the baker, she asked, Ino, these boxes are very light and I'm sure a guy like yourself can handle carrying 4. So what are you up to? He only responded with a smirk. You better not ask Luffy anything strange, okay? He shrugged his shoulders. Maybe I won't. He glanced at her bracelet before she could catch his stare. Maybe I will. Blank, underscore, blank. In one of the empty booths, Kiyoshi placed all 3 boxes on a table, opened it up, and let its aroma do the talking. At the familiar smell, children swarmed to the booth, praising Kiyoshi's baking skills and appreciating the delicious taste. Not even 10 minutes passed by and the boxes were empty except for one pastry left behind. Luffy's mouth watered at it and when allowed to take it, he devoured it quickly. How come you didn't bake more stuff and bring it here to sell? You'll make plenty of money that way. Nami commented. Yeah, plus you just let them snatch it without paying. Luffy added. Kiyoshi warmly smiled at their concern. Don't worry, I'm financially stable and it's a tradition I've been doing since Mako was born. His index finger pointed at a packed booth to their right, 3 booths across from theirs. Luffy-san, you see that place? That's Panda's Bakery. It's famous around these parts of the ocean. That's why there's so many tourists. Not only for a peek at the festivities and market but for their pastries. That place practically birthed Ichiba Island's fame. He took a moment to stare at the many customers the bakery took in. In the beginning, it was only us, locals, who were able to appreciate our island's talented bakers' creations. Of course, their talent was reached across the globe eventually. Our island's chief decided to welcome incoming tourists with a marketplace like no other with prices that can't be beat. However, the popularity got to the bakery's heads and their prices that used to be generous grew drastically high. A child passed by and waved at Kiyoshi so he waved back. In a way, it was the kids that really gave the most attention to Panda's Bakery since they adored anything pastry-like. Now, their own parents don't want to use up so much money for one Danish. Simply cause they can't afford the luxury of eating there every day. Nami watched Kiyoshi's face sadden as he recalled those memories but instantly light up when a child yelled, Hi. A smile crept up her face, now seeing his reason behind baking. I see. So that's why you give free bread to kids every day. To see them eating happily, huh? Precisely. Luffy's laughter suddenly caught both of their attention. In front of their booth was a group of children taking turns in jumping over Luffy's arms. He is a goofy person, but Nami never expected to see him like kids so much. And of course, he didn't hear a word of Kiyoshi's storytelling, but the baker didn't mind as he, too, laughed away when seeing his nephew trip when jumping too slow and yelling at Luffy after. Parents then arrived, retrieving their kids and pulling them further into the crowd. As the captain and little one sat down, Kiyoshi found it right to put attention onto Nami's beautiful bracelet. Luffy-san, isn't Nami-san's bracelet gorgeous? The charms match her personality greatly. The shift in joy in Luffy's expression from the kids changed into a deadpan stare at the mention of it. Nami's cheeks changed to a faint cherry color. She tried to mask it by showing her embarrassment, which was in the form of anger. What about it, Kiyoshi? She spat his name with venom to make it clear that he should quit talking now, just wanted to know what he thinks about it. Luffy's eyes constantly went to her bracelet, then to Nami's face, which made her cheeks even more hot red. He then stared at Kiyoshi, who held his condescending smirk. Of course I think it's pretty, I picked it out for her. Kiyoshi gaped silently at the frank response. It left him feeling a little embarrassed. Well, why would you give your navigator such a gift? Luffy refrained himself from glancing over at Nami's direction. He kept his stare with Kiyoshi, and so did the baker. He paused before answering. To show how much I love her. At first, he was hesitant in adding more, but did nonetheless. We're dating. Somehow, Kiyoshi made him wary about his relationship with Nami. His stomach was then filled with regret. He was so confident in saying it, too. But even though he still didn't look towards Nami's way, he felt like she was disgusted that moment. Something in his chest kept painfully throbbing that moment. He didn't even have to look at Nami to know he misunderstood everything from the beginning, because she said it loud and clearly for him. The navigator felt flustered, felt really shy when hearing his indirect but somewhat direct confession. Oh, she really didn't know. Her lips slowly crept up to form a genuine smile. Her heart was racing and she felt dizzy. What's wrong with me? Pull it together, Nami. Although she was filled with so much joy, her confusion and unsureness got the better of her, and what came out harshly were cruel words instead of the clear happiness she felt that moment. What are you talking about? Why in the world would I be dating you? My captain. That's so ridiculous. When realizing what she said in reply, she immediately covered her mouth. He finally met eyes with her, and in that blank expression was a hint of sorrow. Her heart began to ache. An arm was slung over Luffy's shoulder. Somehow the cook didn't catch Nami's words. In his right hand, between his two fingers, was a cigarette, in which he threw on the ground and stomped on. Sanji let out a clueless chuckle. There's our captain. I'm surprised you skipped on breakfast, Luffy. His light conversation got no response. When seeing his deadpan look, he stepped away from his captain and observed the scene. A brunette man, a stranger next to Nami Swan. Sanji mistook the situation. You bastard. The blonde grabbed the older man's shirt and pulled him up, a shockingly light person. What the hell are you doing with Nami? Are you forcing her to do your work? The tangerine lover knew Sanji wouldn't show no mercy if Kiyoshi's suspicions weren't cleared. She defended the innocent man. Sanji-kun. No, that's not it. He's a friend. Sanji's frown softened at the sight of her as he put the man down. Oh, my apologies, Nami Swan. I was mistaken. Shouldn't he be apologizing to me? Kiyoshi muttered under his breath. As he fixed his composure, he took in the scene of all 9 Straw Hat Pirates standing behind Luffy except for Sanji, who was beside Nami. The cook raised an eyebrow. Oi, Captain, what's up with that look of yours then? His head spun to face the navigator. Nami Swan Tilda, do you have any idea? Nami didn't pay attention since she was too focused on Luffy's hollow eyes. His cold stare left shivers down her spine. No idea, she said in a half-whisper. Luffy, she called in a shaky tone. Following his name, she wanted to ask what the cook wondered but was left frozen. No response, just a weak smile and a nod, then he walked away. Confusion was plastered on her crewmates' faces as their captain threw his hands behind his head, whistling away, while walking towards who knows where. Frankie. Usopp, Chopper, and Brook glanced over at Nami's dispirited face. With their concerning eyes that asked Nami, what happened, she gave them a soft shrug. The 4 of them exchanged looks before running to Luffy's direction to find the answers themselves. As Nami left the booth, Robin and Zoro approached her. The archaeologist wore a saddened look. Navigator San, care to explain what's going on? Zoro nodded. His attention was directed towards the brunette who held the hand of a small child, wondering why Nami was with them. He put a hand on his katanas just in case he could be a threat. I mean shit, it's the other way around now, isn't it? Now Luffy's pissed because of you. Zoro muttered. Sanji kicked the moss head's left leg. Read the room, Marimo. It's not the fucking time. The navigator lifted her head up and stared at Zoro with bulging eyes and a worried look. Pissed. Luffy's pissed. The swordsman scratched his head awkwardly. Could be if you saw him from our view, he didn't look too happy. Sheesh, wonder what you did to piss him off. This time, Robin pinched the man. Nami let out a sigh. A deep, disappointed sigh. What invaded her mind was why Luffy even said they're dating in the first place. Maybe that contributed to her ugly response. It could have been a joke, of course. Her response was in character, too. It's something she'd say to anyone who thought she was dating a crewmate. However, when it came to Luffy, she'd give the opposite answer. But she didn't. She lied to herself and Luffy. Even so, it doesn't explain why he said such a thing to Kyoshi and why he reacted the way he did. Wouldn't Luffy burst into laughter and say it's a joke? Was he really serious? As her thoughts were flooded with the previous scene being repeatedly played in her head, Sanji requested, how about a drink? Nami Swan would like one. The tangerine lover let out a faint chuckle, surprised he knew exactly what she needed that moment. She spun her head to nod to Kyoshi, a sign of her departure. Arms then wrapped around Nami and the warmth of Robin made her feel slightly better. With crossed arms, Zoro smirked and reassured her the bar he found would blow her mind. She appreciated the efforts of her crewmates to get her mind off things, but it only had a slight effect. Her heart still ached and Luffy is plaguing her mind. As she played with the bracelet gifted from her captain, she realized one thing throughout all her confusion. She began to question the relationship they had. Most importantly, she finally understood what he meant that morning during breakfast. She got upset over nothing. What if I told you I didn't want to be friends? Nami wasn't confident in saying it, but she did hope it was his own strange way of confessing. Blank, underscore hi everyone. Hope everyone's staying safe during this pandemic. A very late chapter but a very long one as well. I have no reason why it took me so long, but I will say I had huge writer's block for all my stories. I am very inconsistent when it comes to updating. I really need to improve that quadruple A. Oh, by the way, huge thanks to the readers that really wanted a chapter. It's you guys that remind me people actually enjoy what I write. It really makes my day. Feel free to leave comments and don't forget to vote. I love you all. Where stories live. Discover now.